Syrup.
Syrup? Because I tried it with this bougie maple, there's some kind of like maple, dude, it's good. Yeah. So anyway, I've already had lettuce doggo twice, guys, as you can tell. So that being said, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. It's already December the 3rd. And let's bring on the public auditor now, BJ Cruz, in the KUAM News Zoom room. Good morning, BJ.
Good morning.
Were we making you hungry talking about Bonellis Doggo, or?
Yes.
Have you had Bonellis Doggo this holiday season yet?
Not yet. I
Well.
try to stay away from fried food.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. Well,
But I may break down.
you know what I was thinking, though, as I was frying it? I was thinking, could you steam this? I think you could steam it. It probably
Try
wouldn't be
it.
as
Try
good.
it and let us know.
Yeah, okay, fine. Or even boil it. I think if you're, I don't know, there's got to be some healthy alternative. Or what if you made like a Bonellis Doggo loaf? How's that sound, BJ? Does that sound good? A Bonellis
Try it
Doggo?
in the air fryer.
There you go.
go.
Yep. My son-in-law's an air fryer. Let's try that out. Okay, so let's get into the business side of it now. Public Auditor BJ Cruz came out with an audit. This is like the first audit on the spending of the COVID CARES funds. And I know that for the most part, you were kind of okay with the spending, but I did see that there were some red pen notations that you had made in that audit. And I guess we'll just start there, and then we'll go into the response. Adeloop firing off a response late yesterday afternoon. So just what were some of the problems that your office found with the way the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration had spent these CARES funds?
Well, first, it wasn't the spending. This was just the budget plan that was presented last March or April that we were looking at. And very early, within the first page of the report, in bold letters, we admit that the administration has been following the federal guidelines. So I don't know why they were so upset, but the thing was that what we've learned, at least our auditors have learned in some of our training classes, is that you should have internal controls and some specific plans on how you're planning on or you want to use this money. Because at least the word that we got from our training in the Department of Interior was when you have specific plans for the use of that money, they found that the departments use those funds more appropriately than others that had vague plans. And internal controls are important because if you have the important controls and they are written, not something that, you can say, well, this has been our robust practice ever since. It's, yes, I know they have some practices, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is appropriate for this time and age. And so we were looking for something more specific because we believe that if there isn't specific internal controls, then you're more likely to mess up and get into trouble that way. So those were the things that we looked at. We also found that there were some budget items that we had problems trying to figure out how it had a nexus to coronavirus. And
like which ones? Name a couple so we have an idea.
Well, the thing is that in the audit, we've not named them. We've just, we've accumulated, we've listed them for Part B, and we're going to ask for the expenditure reports on these items and see how it's been used. And maybe we'll find that there was, and I'm hoping that we do, because I really don't want to find that we've misspent any money. That's not my intent. I'm not here for a gotcha moment. I'm here hopefully for prevention, that if we can if we learn how to do things correctly, then we won't make the mistakes again. And that's, one of the reasons, one of my next audit reports that's going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks is compliance with the procurement appeal, and how I passed that legislation several years ago to insist and require that people involved in procurement have the requisite training. And it's not so that I can say I got you, but it was my hope that by training that we could do things properly as intended by the statute, and we wouldn't have appeals and protests. And so that's all I'm hoping to do in this office, is to establish policies and procedures and recommendations that's going to prevent future misuse of funds.
Did this part?
And the other thing that I wanted to highlight, because it was mentioned in an article this morning, that the Department of Interior and some of the federal government agencies have underwritten a group called the Graduate School. And the Graduate School provides training to those of us in the territories. And I think some of the states actually, they go in and they train public auditors about how to audit things. And they even do training for financial people. When Guam hosted the APIPA conference 2 summers ago, Graduate School put that on. We had over 400 people from throughout the Pacific, and we had people from Department of Administration, DOE, all the government agencies. I mean, we had over 200 delegates from Guam, and it was all to train on how to apply for grants, how to spend money for grants, how to audit the use of these monies. And so they believe that through the Graduate School, if we all get the requisite training, then they don't have to worry about the money that they're sending to us being misspent. And so we try to get as much training as we can from the Graduate School. And they were the ones that provided us the training in October on how to audit CARES funds expenditures. And we had representatives from the GAO, the Inspector General of Office of the Department of Interior, and 2 representatives from the state auditor's office in Denver, Colorado. And they talked about what they've been doing, and they were really, really helpful. And after the class, I texted one of them and I asked if they would be willing to review a report that we were planning on coming out with. And they said, sure, they'd be more than willing to do that. And when they reviewed our report, they had a glowing review of the report about how these were the kinds of things that they were finding. They were also finding that internal controls weren't being established or implemented. They were finding that vague plans for spending were producing problems. And so they thought that the report was excellent. And that was almost the first line in her response to us. So I was very proud of the work product of my staff, and I stand by it.
Yeah, so they sent out a release. I'm pretty sure you saw that. Adelup sent out a release.
And it admits that there should be internal controls. They just say that they have internal controls that have been established.
Right. Let me read from this Dear BJ letter. BBMR and DOA have reviewed the report and have advised you, the OPA, that existing financial controls are robust and more than sufficient to support expenditures under this funding source. DOA and BBMR have been careful to follow U.S. Treasury guidelines as they have been issued and amended. Reports on expenditures as of August 31st, September 30, and October 31st, 2020 were posted on the Office of the Governor's website. BBMR and DOA have adhered to the Department of Treasury guidance and executive orders in establishing and updating budget numbers for a plan for the judicious use of these funds during the applicable period. The budget, which was submitted to the legislature on May 5th, 2020, and its subsequent updates have been carefully reviewed and monitored to make the best use of these funds. BBMR and DOA have written to the OPA indicating their disagreement with this part of the OPA's report.
And we have, and that's why this audit took so long. When we do our reports, we have an engagement meeting at the very beginning with the agency that we're going to look at. After we have an initial draft, we provide a copy of it to the agency and allow them time to respond. We meet with them and discuss it. Then we rewrite if necessary, and then we have a closing meeting with them, at which time we again give them time to respond. And sometimes, you know, it's hard to set up these Zoom meetings now because of everybody having Zoom meetings, it seems. And so it's hard to schedule Zoom meetings. And then we give them time. I mean, it's just, sometimes it takes weeks for responses from some of the agencies after we've given them time to respond. And then we meet with them and we look at what their response is. They provided us a 900-page response after we gave them time to respond the last time. Oh. And my auditors looked at it and actually came back to me and said, they've actually provided more information that we find questionable, and we've already marked as something that we should look at for the next audit. And so I'm comfortable and confident with what my staff has produced, and we are planning already and are going to be meeting with agencies to look at the actual expenditures themselves, and we'll address that in the next audit. And I'm losing all my hair now because I'm trying to push out at least 3 more audits before the end of the month, and a decision on procurement appeal. And so we're very busy at the office, and we're very short-staffed. 2 of our staff have been hired by the Department of Administration.
Are you worried about them giving inside info to DOA? Hey, here's what he was looking at. No. Go ahead and change that up.
No, they're very competent. They're 2 of my certified fraud investigators. I mean, they're actually certified in fraud investigation. And I lost both of them, and that means I have none right now. Wow. Last year, I lost one of my 2 CPAs, and I'm still trying to encourage my staff to take the test so that they can all get their own certifications. And so when we're trying to build up the staff that we have.
When the spending comes in and you start auditing that, what are, based on your review of the budget, or even just based on your review of media reports and, publicized expenditures, what are going to be some of the things that you're going to be taking a keen interest in?
Well, we're hoping that everything has proper documentation with it, As in some of our earlier meetings, I mentioned to the administration that I noticed that since May, when Treasury started to send out these guidances and FAQs, I've noticed that sometimes in May, they may have said one thing, and in July, they're saying another thing. And so I've cautioned everyone to please make sure that when you make a decision that you're going to spend this money on this program, just make a copy of that page from the FAQ or the guidelines. It says that you can, because if they change it later in their guidances, you can at least say, when I did it pursuant to what you had recommended, or at least advised at the time that you advised it. So
BJ, I had a question. You said the budget, is this the May budget that was submitted by the governor or BBMR to the legislature? It was?
yes.
Okay. And so did this part one report, did it look into the expenditures for quarantine in the first round of quarantine hotels?
Not in this report. Hopefully before the end of the month, we will be issuing our separate audit on COVID hotels.
Oh, okay. When you said
We have three COVID audits that were ongoing simultaneously at the office because you guys kept insisting that things be different, be audited. This first one was just on the budget, which was mandated by statute. The second one is going to be on differential pay, because there was that whole big issue at one point on differential pay. And the third is going to be on the COVID hotels and expenditures and the authority behind that.
like
And hopefully those will all be released before the end of the month.
okay. And you mentioned specific plans that should have been submitted or weren't submitted or weren't. Can you tell me a little bit or explain a little bit more about what you meant by that?
Well, you know, it would be like, why, when Department of Revenue and Taxation requested a certain amount, did your budget provide 5 million more than they had requested? What was it that, and what are they going to spend it on?
Mm-hmm.
And I know what you want to spend it on, but has that been, you know, is that something COVID related, or is it, as the initial law says, it shouldn't be spent for things that have been budgeted for or should have been budgeted for before a certain date? And that's all we're looking at.
Like things like iPads, are you looking at that? Laptops, battery backup, hard drives, things like that.
Well,
smart TVs,
I'm going to wait on commenting on those until I see how it's spent. I mean, if after it's spent, and they provide the justification for it, we see that it was indeed necessary for the continued operation of the office because of COVID, then I'll have to, you know, we'll have to find that it is a justifiable expense. If we find that it wasn't, then we'll make that finding also. But I want to wait until actually I see the actual purchase, how it was done, and what it's being actually used for. Okay.
Right. And because this is federal monies, I know that we've heard before, you know, the legislature can't tell the governor how to spend federal money. What does this audit mean in the end? I mean, can the OPA really, I don't know, what kind of weight does this have? I mean,
I think it only addresses the concerns and the demands of the community. I mean, every December, my office sits down and decides what our strategic plan, our action plan is for next year. And we list the audits that we're going to try to do. You know, we have 10 or 12 listed as planned for the next year. But that's not, you know, chiseled into concrete. It changes. And if, as happened early this year with the COVID, and, you know, $1 billion coming to Guam, and the community demanding by statute a semi-annual report from my office, and you guys in talk radio having questions about COVID hotels or having questions about differential pay, and there's this whole, uproar in the community that they want to know what these things are, then we change the plans, and I'll talk to the auditors and say, can we move this in place of something that's not as currently relevant or as of major concern to the community. I mean, if I had an unlimited staff, I'd be able to do my plan for next year plus take into account anything that comes up in the interim. But right now, as small as my staff is, we can only do just so many at one time. And so then we have to reprioritize our plans.
Well, no, I certainly appreciate you and your staff's effort. It's good to have a pair of eyes or sets of eyes on how this money is being spent. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the link. Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Our pleasure.
I hope this puts us all to rest.
I'm pretty sure it won't, because now they're going to clap back at whatever you said in this interview. And then
Dear. Okay.
It's a bit tedious, but it is what it is.
Okay.
Thank you, BJ.
I see you have more important people up after me, doctors. Let's take care of this thing so we can have a good Christmas.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Right on, BJ. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, if we don't see you before Christmas, but I have a feeling we will. So I'll
Talk
wish
to you
one
tomorrow.
out. Okay, yeah.
When the other audits come out, you will definitely be seeing me.
Oh,
right.
okay.
Ooh.
Thanks, BJ. What do we got, Jay?
You were talking about Benella's doggo, so I think you.
Yeah, well, there's virtual Benella's doggo there, BJ. If you want to take some on your way out.